Welcome to yet another edition of the Christian Tales series, Volume 3 of the First Century Christians. We've told of Jesus and Paul, and now we dive into the bold journey of Apostle Peter, the rock, the preacher, the martyr. Don't miss a moment. Like, share, follow, and subscribe now to stay inspired and connected. The call by the sea. Peter was just a fisherman, casting nets on the Sea of Galilee. When Jesus called, "Follow me," without hesitation, he left the familiar to follow the unknown. That moment changed his life. The man with calloused hands and a fiery heart was stepping into a divine journey that would redefine who he was, from fisherman to faith walker. It began not with a miracle, but a bold yes to a rabbi from Nazareth. Episode 2, The Bold Confession. Among the murmurs of crowds and confused disciples, Peter's voice cut through. "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." It wasn't logic, it was revelation. Jesus affirmed him, calling him the rock on which he'd build his church. For a moment, Peter stood tall, hearing heaven's echo in his words. He had grasped divinity in dust, but he didn't yet understand the cost of carrying such a confession. Episode 3, The Walk and the Waver. Waves crashed. Jesus walked on water. Peter, eyes fixed on him, stepped out of the boat. Faith held him until fear spoke louder. He sank. Jesus caught him with a question. "Why did you doubt?" Peter learned that faith isn't always steady, but Jesus always is. That night, he walked on water, but more importantly, he discovered that even sinking people are never beyond Christ's reach. Episode 4, The Mountain of Glory. Jesus took Peter, James, and John up a mountain. There, his face shone like the sun, and Moses and Elijah appeared. Peter, stunned, suggested building shelters. A voice from the cloud thundered, "This is my beloved son, listen to him." Peter was silenced. Glory wasn't meant to be caged, it was meant to change them. That mountaintop moment would burn in Peter's memory for the rest of his days. Episode 5, The Sword and the Rooster. In Gethsemane, Peter drew his sword to defend Jesus. He was ready to fight, but not to surrender. Later, by a fire, he denied Jesus 3 times. Then came the rooster's crow, and their eyes met. Shame pierced deeper than any blade. Peter ran, weeping bitterly. His loyalty had cracked under pressure, but this breaking would become the soil of his restoration. Grace was waiting beyond his guilt. Episode 6, Breakfast of Restoration. On a Galilean morning, the risen Jesus made breakfast. 3 times he asked Peter, "Do you love me?" 3 denials, 3 chances to say yes. Peter, grieved, affirmed his love. Jesus responded, "Feed my sheep." Restoration wasn't public, it was personal. Jesus rewrote Peter's failure with fresh purpose. Forgiveness didn't erase the past, it transformed it. The shame of the fire was replaced by a new flame. Episode 7, Pentecost Flame. In Jerusalem, the Holy Spirit came like wind and fire. Peter, once timid, now stood boldly before thousands. He preached Christ crucified and risen. The man who had once trembled before a servant girl now thundered with authority. 3,000 souls believed that day. Pentecost lit a fire in Peter that no fear could quench. He was no longer a follower, he was now a founder of the early church. Episode 8, Shadows and Chains. Peter's shadow healed the sick. Crowds gathered. Miracles followed. But opposition rose. He was imprisoned, chained, and guarded. One night, an angel appeared. Light filled the cell, and chains fell. Peter walked past sleeping guards and iron gates that opened on their own. God was writing a story where no prison could hold this purpose. Peter learned, when God moves, no chain, physical or spiritual, can stand. Episode 9, The Gentile Door. Peter saw a vision, unclean animals lowered from heaven. "Kill and eat," God said. Peter resisted, but soon stood in a Gentile's home. As he preached, the Holy Spirit fell. Grace broke barriers. The gospel wasn't Jewish alone, it was for all. Peter's eyes opened. Salvation wore no ethnic badge. He returned changed, declaring, "God shows no favoritism." The door to the nations had swung wide open. Episode 10, The Final Hour. Years later, old and wise, Peter faced Nero's persecution. Arrested again, he stood firm. He requested to be crucified upside down, unworthy to die like Jesus. His life, once marked by impulsive zeal and painful failure, ended in surrendered glory. Peter's legacy wasn't perfection, but perseverance. From nets to nations, From denials to declarations, his story became proof that grace can transform anyone. This brings us to the end of this week's edition on Apostle Peter in our Christian Tales series. We hope you're inspired by his journey of faith, courage, and purpose. Don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe so you never miss a weekly tale. The full book is available on Amazon stores. The link will be shared shortly. Stay blessed and see you next week.